Okay guys, today we're going to be talking about my experience of 100 miles in my Adidas Ultraboost DNA 5.0s. So in this video we're going to talk about everything from my break-in, fit and feel, to overall the experience, the traction, the durability of these guys at 100 miles. Now, in fairness, I probably have a little over 100 miles in these things, but I have put these through their paces so I've put these things through indoor, outdoor running and hiking, kind of trail use. So I thought today I would be breaking it down and talking about the practical side of the Adidas Ultraboost DNA 5s. Now, I know a lot of people wear these things for fashion, but there is a lot of technology behind these shoes. So I thought, instead of just boring you with fancy names and the fancy talking points of the Adidas Ultraboost DNAs, thought I'd actually talk to you guys, what does it mean in real life and in practice. Let's talk about it. So let's jump into fit and feel, because fit and feel / break-in are probably the most important part of any shoe if you're going to be wearing them, whether it's on the street, on the trails, at work, or wherever you're going to wear these. It's important to know how they fit your foot and how they make you feel. It should have good support, no blisters, nothing like that. It shouldn't rub you in any wrong way. So the break-in for this shoe, and I would say I don't necessarily know what a break-in period for everyone else is looking like, but 100 miles for me, definitely the shoe has started to take to the contour and shape of my foot. The break-in process itself was great. It was fantastic. This shoe was comfortable out of box. I didn't have any kind of pain. Obviously no blisters, nothing. The support from this shoe has been excellent, especially while running and really putting this shoe through its paces. It has definitely not had any hot spots or really any type of discomfort. Now, some people might not like the fact that this shoe isn't super plushy. It is an Ultra Boost, so you might be expecting a lot of plush to it, a lot of boost. I will say I have a pair of New Balance Hero V5s, and those feel more plush than this, but I think the biggest differentiation between this and something that's just pure plush, pure foam, is the fact that there's a good amount of support. So you get a good amount of boost, you get a good amount of comfort while wearing, but you also have a good amount of support in your shoe. Your shoe doesn't feel like it's just pure foam, and that is something that I definitely felt with this shoe. While running especially, I felt like my foot had good support and good comfort in this pair of shoes over the course of the 100 miles. So that's been the fit and feel of it. Overall, no complaints. Definitely a super comfortable shoe. Now, the fit is a little bit close or a little bit snug than a lot of other more traditional trail running shoes. So that is something to take into account. The best way to describe the overall fitment, and the toe box especially, is the fact that it doesn't feel... So the best way to describe the toe box's feel is that it doesn't feel cramped, but that it feels close. So it kind of feels like putting on a glove. Your hand shouldn't feel like it's being squeezed to death, but you should be aware that you're wearing something. So that's the kind of fitment and feel that I get out of these shoes, is that I can tell, especially when going to a more traditional boot like this, there's a lot more room in the toe box, whereas with this toe box, it's definitely far narrower, but it's not a constricted, tight feeling. I definitely don't have any pain. And once again, when doing things like running, when your foot is kind of rolling towards the front of the boot, or the shoe, I should say, it's definitely not a bad feeling. So there's been no real discomfort out of this shoe. Okay, so the durability over the course of 100 miles. Now, for me, 100 miles is basically my break-in period, so there really hasn't been any significant or substantial wear on these shoes. They still look pretty brand new. I mean, obviously they do look worn, especially if you look in certain areas. Of course, right now they look a little dirty, but overall the look of these shoes is just fine. The durability has been just fine. It's there. It's okay. Like I said, nothing to really complain of. From the first 100 miles, there's obviously no separation. Something that I do genuinely like about things like the shoes like the Ultraboost 5s and 4s is that because there's so much knitted upper to these and so little kind of composites or plastics, the wear on shoes like these, including the DNA 5s, should be very good, because I found just through the course of time, having many sneakers, knit uppers tend to last a lot longer, because with a knit upper, you're dealing with a fabric, and that fabric can stretch and it can move, and it doesn't get brittle and crack. So with a lot of your trail shoes and a lot of other kinds of sneakers that have lots of composites, lots of leathers, lots of those different types of materials, they crack, they dry out, they fade, they just break down a lot faster than knit uppers, because fabric is just so much more durable. So overall, these shoes, aside from a few scuff marks and aside from a little wear on the outsoles, they look pretty much brand new. Now, one thing I did want to especially talk about with these shoes themselves, once again, I don't want to get too market hypey, but these shoes in particular are actually all the Ultraboost series from Adidas. They've partnered with Continental, the tire manufacturer, or Continental Tire, to make the outsoles for these shoes. And I do have to say, they do market these shoes as very good for wet weather performance. And I can confirm, in fact, actually indoor on wet tile and on wet kind of hard surfaces indoors, not just outdoors on wet environments or wet ground, the traction on these outsoles is very, very good. It's something that, initially looking at this track pattern, it doesn't necessarily look like anything particularly special or particularly good, but I will say, and I will hand it to Continental, or the manufacturer of these outsoles, they did a very good job with the rubber compound. It offers excellent grip, not just in dry, normal ground and normal terrain, but when the ground is wet or slippery, these still have a good amount of traction. Now, of course, slippery surfaces are a lot like ice. There's no perfect solution aside from, maybe cleats on slippery surfaces. So you do have to be cautious, but I have, once again, my primary reference point is the New Balance Hero V5s, which are a trail running shoe, and they have great traction. They have a Vibram outsole that it has very grippy, but the moment it gets into wet surfaces, wet and slippery terrains, that outsole, like a lot of other outsoles, just loses all traction, and you really are like skating on those types of slippery surfaces, whereas these outsoles do offer a decent amount of traction, actually surprising good amount of traction. So overall, going over to quality and price point. Now, these are not cheap running shoes at around anywhere from $140 to $180 for just about any DNA 5. You are talking a pretty penny for these shoes, but do I think they're worth it? You're definitely paying for the price of the name. Ultraboost and Adidas are well-known brands, so there is some play in that. But as far as the technology and performance goes, there is some genuine performance behind these shoes, and so these are not just wear for the cool factor or wear to show off how much money you're willing to spend on your shoes. These aren't necessarily a fashion statement as much, or these can be a fashion statement, but there is some serious performance to back up that name and that brand. So I want to say that these aren't just purely a fashion statement or a fashion icon. These are solid boots these are solid shoes with some solid performance. Now, like I said, for $180, you are paying somewhat for that Adidas name, but you are getting a good quality shoe that's very comfortable to wear and is also very supportive, and it also has good, genuine performance out of the rubber in the outsole. You are getting a competitive advantage with the rubber that is there. So this isn't just a generic shoe with a cool kid, brand on it, so they jack the price way up. There is some serious technology here that makes these competitive shoes genuinely. So aside from that, there is, of course, the responsibility factor. If you believe in that, the uppers especially are made with a degree of recycled plastic, so that's kind of cool as well if you are of that opinion or you like that kind of supporting that kind of mission. But aside from that, they are really good competitive shoes for running, for around town, even for work if you have more of a job that requires you to be up and moving and not just sitting around all day. These would make a fine addition for that as well. So that's basically my experience of 100 miles and 2 weeks with the Adidas Ultraboost DNA 5.0s. They are a solid shoe. I definitely don't regret picking them up, but if you are thinking about picking them up, they look good, they perform just as good as they look. So that's all I have to say, guys. I'm out.